Hi, this is Donald here, and this is my book review of Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Fahrenheit 451 is a dystopian novel written in 1953. It's often read in US schools, and also at the same time it was actually banned a lot in US schools. These days I would say it's more commonly read in schools than not. Something interesting I learned about this book, from the author's messages in the back of the book, is that the author wrote the first draft of this book in only 9 days. Compare that to most authors these days, right? He was really focused, and I think a big part of it was because he was using a paid typing station, because it was quite back in the day. So he really had to get his money's worth out of each day. Fahrenheit 451 is set in a dystopian future in the United States, where books are banned and people are constantly surrounded by entertainment, so they can't think, basically. The main character is a fireman, who, ironically enough, is a man who burns down homes of those who hide or read books. He's part of a secret police, or another way of looking at it is he is the instrument of the secret police, where when they figure out someone who's reading, they send him to burn down the house. I don't have much to comment on the physical copy of this book. It's nice and small. It's about 165 pages for the main plot, with some author interviews in the back. And this book is so common and famous and well read in schools that I'm sure there are tons of different sizes and copies available. Truthfully, the writing is a little bit more of a mixed bag. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to follow, and sometimes I got a little confused where I was or who was talking or what tense it was, or if it was imaginary or in the real world or internal dialogue or, etc., etc. Some of the dialogue does feel a little bit dry, especially when characters just start reciting paragraphs from books they randomly read. And it's like, well, you haven't read this book in 20 years. How do you remember this? Sometimes they can also sound a bit preachy, which makes sense because it seems like the author really wrote this book pretty quickly, so maybe it's not the most elegantly placed book. The premise and the themes of this book are amazing, of course. I do think the importance of reading, especially in our society, Western society, is very high, and it almost gets deified in this book, strangely enough. Maybe a little too extreme. I don't doubt that it's essential to Western civilization, but at the same time, it's almost on a worship level. And I do think reading is important, but there are many other things that are important in addition to reading. Some of the characters were a bit throwaway, and what I mean by that is that they were characters who were used as plot points rather than just living people in this world. For example, the character's wife basically represented, in my opinion, a person who got corrupted by the society, whereas she unfortunately felt a little hollow and a little bit too plot point centric, like too convenient almost, right? Then again, it's a short book and he really needs to get the characters going, and maybe it was part of his intention to have some hollow characters to show the corruption of society. The final ending of this book and the message will certainly remain with me for a long time. It's something I've thought about personally in my life, way in advance of reading this book. In the future, when I think about that same thing, I'll reflect back on Fahrenheit 451. Would I recommend this book? Yes, I definitely recommend this book to anybody. It's not too hard to read, it's pretty short, and has a great timeless message. Ironically enough, I think a large reason why this book is read in schools is to encourage reading, even though it seems like people read and then they get tired of reading and they don't read that much these days anyways. But it's kind of ironic because the book we have people reading is a book on the dangers of not reading, but it doesn't seem to be working too well. But that's nothing to say to the quality of the book. I think it's great. I enjoyed it. Once it hooked me, and I finished the whole thing in a day. It took a couple reading sessions before that to get me hooked on it, though. And that is my review of Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I know a lot of you may have read this in school, at least if you're in the United States. So let me know in the comments below. Thanks.